Hi, money magicians. How are you? So, welcome to episode 55 of the Money Magic Podcast. If you've just joined us, my name is Vangile Makwakwa, and I am your host for the show. I help women of color heal ancestral money trauma, fall in love with their bank accounts, and increase their increase income and live their best lives, right? And today I have an incredible guest with me. Her name is Tsitsi, and she is all the way from the UK, originally from Zimbabwe. Welcome to the show, Tsitsi. I'm so happy that you are having a conversation with us around money.
Hi, Vangile. Thank you so much for inviting me into your community and also inviting me to share what I know so far about money and all those wonderful things that we talk about money.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, Tsitsi, you start. What do you do for a living? Before I even jump into anything else, tell us about you. What are your hobbies? Who are you as a person? How do you describe yourself? And then what do you do for a living? That comes afterwards in the show. First, I want to know you.
Yes. Who am I? Well, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister. I am, a friend to so many people, a confidant. What do I love doing? I love being around people. I love good food. I love gin and tonic. So if you're ever going to invite me, make sure there's a gin and tonic.
Oh, I'll have to bear that in mind because I'm a red wine girl.
No,
red wine or
red
whiskey. Oh, water.
Yeah, gin and tonic is my thing. I love music. I love singing. That's something I used to do all the time when I was younger. I used to be in choirs and things like that. And I love life and helping people. And I've just found myself in this world of finance, and so I help people with their money. What do I do? So my 9-to-5 job is as an investment manager. I work for a wealth management firm here in the UK. That wasn't my dream job, but I kind of stumbled into that. So I've been in the financial services industry for over 13 years in the UK.
Wow.
And I'd never been in financial services until I moved to the UK from Zimbabwe. And when I joined, I actually joined as a secretary and worked my way up. We might touch on that later, but I won't go into the details of that now. I'm also a certified financial coach. And I went into coaching because I really felt that there was a gap between the high net worth individuals that I serve and people who are just like me or who were like me before I joined the industry. And I really wanted to close that gap because I believe that the financial services industry has got so much to offer, and it supports people. And I think everyone at every level of their money or wealth journey needs to interact with financial services in some way. But there was a gap between the conversation between the two. So I wanted to kind of bridge that gap, but also share what I know so far about money and wealth. And hopefully that will help build communities, not just in the UK, but in Zimbabwe as well.
But you also run coaching services, right? Can you tell us about that? Like,
okay, so my
everything. We want to know everything on this podcast. So you also coach people around money. Tell us what you do there.
Yeah, so with the coaching, it's really it's evolved over time. Initially, it was about just supporting people because a lot of individuals would come up to me with questions around pensions, about saving, about what is generational wealth. I'd be asked a lot of questions about tax, like especially when people are thinking about their parents getting older. They're about, they're now, people start thinking about things like inheritance tax, the tax that comes when someone has passed away. All these questions, and some of the questions they actually didn't need to ask because it wasn't an issue for them. So there was this like knowledge gap, and I thought I need to help people understand a bit more about how money works. So it just started off like that, where I'd be helping people by answering their questions. And from there, I realized that, there was an issue here where people weren't really engaging well with money. It seemed like something that it was the last thing on the list. And so I thought, there's definitely a knowledge gap, but there's also a gap in terms of people understanding their impact on their money, right?
Yeah.
Because they were always...
You just said a word there, sis. People understanding their impact about money. Let's keep talking, but we're going to come back to that.
Yeah.
That was a sermon. The beginnings of one, anyway.
The beginnings of one, yeah. Not understanding how they are impacting their money, and also how their past is impacting their money. So and I love understanding how people work. So it just took me on this journey of, okay, it's really about mindset and habits. So that's what I started helping people with, just understanding their mindset, their money habits, and showing them how they're actually impacting their relationship with money and the things that they do with their money, but also trying to get them to understand what it is they really want to achieve and not be swayed by what the world seems to want them to achieve. So, for instance,
so powerful and so important what you've just said about what they want to achieve and not what the world wants them to achieve.
Yeah, no, it's so true, because a lot of the time I'd find that it's a case of people feeling like they don't deserve or they shouldn't have a lot of money, and so they'd be behaving in a certain way. And some of that was because of things they were told when they were younger, or things that they saw growing up. And I think especially for Black people, there is this sense that wealth isn't for us.
Yeah.
And so we behave with, the things we do with money. It seems like we are, we don't understand it. But sometimes we do understand it, but we try and repel the money because we feel it's not for us. And that's something that
But also the rest of the world tells us that.
Exactly.
I mean, like if you open up books, sorry to interrupt, Tsitsi, but I'm just thinking, open up books, open up magazines, like you're basically taught that Africa is synonymous with poverty. This kind of teachings at schools, by the media, all these teachings are basically saying to kids, to Black children and to children from the African continent, you are poor, that poverty is something that is within your blood. They forget to negate. Again, it's like what Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie talks about, right? That like, it's that if you are talking about Africa's story and you are starting from the middle, about us being poor, you're not telling Africa's story, because you're not talking about how Africa was wealthy and then became poor, right? Like that. The story of poverty in Africa is 300 years old, right? And yet Africa's story is millennia old, right? So you are telling a 300-year story, a 300 to 400-year story against millennia, like 10 millennia, right? Yeah. Like that is not Africa's story. Like it's not the full story of Africa. This is a phase that we're going through, but then keep repeating it, and every generation for the last 400 years that hears this now believes that wealth is not our portion. And yet, how is it that this continent is so wealthy, that the ground is so wealthy? If wealth is not our portion, and like the land responds to the psyche of a people, then why is it that we are so wealthy? Tell the truth. And so I agree. There's so much trauma in even how we are represented as Africans that impacts our image of self, which is also another element. Forget our childhood stories, our family stories. This is another level of trauma that we then keep taking on, how our stories are told to us, about us, not by us, but about us, to us.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I have noticed, and you've probably picked this up, Vangile, is that there are the stories that are told to us about us, but then within us, there's like this, it feels like it's a counter story that we don't understand. Like, why do I like nice things? Why do I want to be, like powerful and have that good job.
Why am I a liker of things, all nice things, you know, like
exactly.
why?
And why am I proud? Like, you know, and when you look at Africans, you know, and when the West look at like Africans, you see color, you see pride. And, you know, I hear people ask questions like, there's so much poverty, but people are so happy. And there's like the the way we move, the way we talk, the way we do things is completely opposite to what the world says we should be like. And when that comes to the individual level and we're dealing with money, it causes a lot of confusion. A lot of confusion because the wealth is in us, like you're saying, in the land. The wealth is there, like, you know, there is so much that comes out of the land in Africa, from minerals to food and all sorts of things. And, you know,
and
to even...
as you talk about this, I want to say there's a literal connection between the land and us as a people.
Yeah.
It's like a first chakra thing. It's that like there's a DNA connection between the people of a land and the land as well. But I think that this is how trauma works, right? Trauma gets us, like in the same way with any individual, trauma gets you to forget who you are. This is why when we start healing, things like, it's like I'm coming back to myself. I'm remembering who I am. I can feel my power. So I feel like the trauma of collective oppression within Africa has made us forget ourselves, has made us forget our own magic. So we somehow feel that like this land has all this wealth without us being in this land, that it just magically happened. We're not seeing. And also the trauma has caused us to disconnect from the land. So we don't see the connection between the wealth of the land and the wealth of us as a people. And there's a direct connection to that, guys. There is a direct connection. But the thing is that if we don't see our own power as African people, someone else will make use of that power, and they have. They've been utilizing our knowledge, our power, our self, our sense of self, our dances, our everything for their own benefit, right? Because the trauma has blinded us to our own magic, which I love what you're saying about, like, you don't understand why you like nice things. Why am I attracted to nice things? And then the worst thing, I don't know if you see this, Tsitsi, it's like we are likers of nice things. We like nice things. We like staying in certain places. Like that's just us as a people. You know, we like nice clothes. We like nice jewelry, all that. And then people shame us for that and tell us that we are poor because we are likers of things. Not that we are poor because of the systems that keep us poor. Not that we are poor because we've been colonized and there's all this stuff. And no, we are poor because we are likers of nice things. Like, and then what we then do, I see this a lot with Black women, is then we force ourselves not to like nice things, to shut down our desires. Because no, if you go and you get the Gucci handbag, you're broke because of that Gucci handbag, as opposed to let's have a different conversation, which is why you're here, around how do we create wealth? How do we create generational wealth? Because me saving $3, £3 or £3 or 30 Rand on a latte, let's be honest, I can do that for 30 days. Exactly. I always say I hate the latte factor. So I don't buy lattes for 30 days. And I save 30 Rand a day. That's 900 Rand, right? Yes, over a year, it's something like maybe 11,000 Rand or something like that, or 11,000 plus, right? So, but the thing is, at the end of the day, that is not what's gonna make me wealthy. So even if I saved 11,000 Rand for 10 years, I will have saved 110,000 Rand in 10 years. You know, let's get real. Like when people are talking about creating wealth, they're talking about creating millions, assets, etc. Let's have that conversation and let's stop shaming people for wanting a little bit of pleasure in a world that can sometimes be harsh, extremely harsh.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, my my strapline is become the designer of your financial future, because I think it is so important to like really be not in control, but really think about what it is you want and go for it. Because when we talk about money, money is just a tool, right? I liken it to like a spade or even an axe. You take those tools and you put them in your hand and you point to where you want them to hit. And it's your action that makes them hit, and your perseverance that gets to create whatever it is, whether it's like hacking down something or digging a hole. So it's really important for us to remember that we are in complete control of this tool, right? It will do whatever we want it to do. This concept of it having its own power, its own mindset is completely wrong. And so when I decided to go into coaching, it was about changing that mindset and getting especially Black women to understand that we are able to make decisions based on the things that we want for ourselves, our families, and our community, and we can make them happen. We just have to gain that confidence and realize that we can influence what happens with our money. So I have a blueprint that I use. I call it the Choices Blueprint. And it's basically 7 steps that I take my clients through when I'm coaching them about how to literally become the designer of your financial future and also create generational wealth at the same time. And part of that is if the first step is about getting clear on what it is you really want. And if you want to have those lattes every day, that is absolutely fine, because you can create that lifestyle and you can manage your money in a way that it allows you to have the lattes and still save. You know, if you've got debt and you want to save, you can do the two together. It's just about understanding how to manage it. So I try and bring what I've learned, the technical stuff I've learned to become a wealth manager, plus my own journey, getting out of debt and really realizing that a lot of the stuff I was doing that was getting me in debt was because I wasn't following what was inside. I was trying to create a lifestyle that the world was telling me I should have and do things for other people. But once I started focusing on what I really wanted and was completely unapologetic about it, it was just so much easier. And the money started flowing, and all of a sudden the money was there, you know.
Yeah, I love that. Can you walk us through your journey as to how you came to do this work? What was that like for you? Because I can only imagine. Hugh, like I think that people that come to do deep money work have like some really interesting money stories, right? Like I always say to people, like the people that I know that were always good at saving, when you talk to them, they're good at money, they were always good at money, etc. They okay, right? But those of us that have gone through the tranches and have been through the money stuff, that's we got really interested in. What is this money thing? What is going on here?
Exactly.
And we had to learn to heal. In order to heal and change our money story, we had to go into the dark spaces where we deal with money. So what's been your money journey?
Yeah, it's been a long one. It's still continuing. The chapters are still being written, but you know, it all began like everything when I was much younger. You know, my parents were both doctors. You know, I went to private school, etc., in Zimbabwe, and literally, I never thought about money. Things were just there. They were always there. We would go on holiday. Everything was there. Everything I could ever dream of as a child, I got. And I had 3 younger siblings. My dad died when I was 12, and my mother then passed away when I was 17. And between the ages of 12 and 17, I saw something happen that I never thought happened. Like I saw a woman manage a household on her own, which was like completely weird to me, because I just thought I had the image of a perfect family. You know, a family is mother, father, children, you know, white picket fence, that sort of thing that you see on TV. And I'm seeing this thing playing out in front of me. She passed away at 17. And then I was like, well, okay, I'm the eldest, because I was always told that, you have to look after your younger siblings, look out for them, set a good example. So I kind of decided that it was my place to become the head of the household and look after my siblings. And that is what I did. And the first real encounter for me with money, as in me having to make a financial decision, was when we got the rates bill from the city council, and there was a line there which said like water, and there was an amount next to it, and I was like, we pay for water?
I can imagine though at 17. So you were taking care of the rates bills at 17.
It's like, we pay for water and there's no income. I'm still going to school, like everyone's going to school. So I was now dealing with lawyers about, the estate and whatnot, and just didn't understand anything that was happening. All I needed was to make sure that these bills were being paid. Needless to say, the money started running out, and I'm doing it was lower 6 at that time. So going on to my A-level year. So I did my A-levels, but during that period, I had to now decide, what am I going to do in terms of income coming into the house, because no one was working, everyone was going to school.
Because you were the eldest at 17 and you were
Yes,
the head of a household.
Yeah. So I decided to then do a secretarial course so I could go to work. So that was like a year after school. And I did the secretarial course, and that's when I started earning. But even then, I don't even know what my first salary was, because it wasn't mine, right? It just, as soon as I got it, it went to pay rent, it went to pay this, it went to pay that, and it was gone. So I can never, to this day, I don't know what it was. And I know now that those events have had a really big impact on my relationship with money, because I am very, very giving. And for a long time, I was just like literally giving my money away, as in if someone needed help, I would help without thinking about my needs first, to the point that when I moved to the UK, I got myself into a lot of debt because I was trying to help people back home, partly because it was, there was that guilt about, oh, I'm in this place, now I can build my life, and I'm using a currency that's actually can do something, right? With a pound, you can do quite a lot. In Zimbabwe, the currency was devaluing on an hourly basis, so you couldn't do much. So there was that.
I guess that was in the early 2000s, right?
I moved in 2006.
Oh my gosh, I remember that the currency, there was a time in Zimbabwe when literally what you could buy an hour before, you couldn't buy with the same amount of money in Zimbabwe. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So there's that. And also by that time I'd had my daughter, and I had left her behind so I could set things up in the UK. And so she could come. So there's also money going back because of that, right? To support family back home. I'm trying to maintain relationships. So when people need things, I'm kind of like being, okay, I'll support, because I didn't have a strong relationships here in terms of family, even though there is family here, but I didn't have those connections. I was still holding on to back home, also because I came with that 5-year plan, right? That everyone has when they move overseas. I'll be back in 5 years.
No.
So it just made sense to be kind of investing back home. Needless to say, I get myself into a lot of debt, and there was a point where for 3 months I would literally go to work and come home and not talk to anybody, because I was so weighed down by this debt. I was so confused about what to do, because I didn't understand how it worked. When I moved to the UK, I opened a bank account and I was given an overdraft. And I thought it was free money, because the people I knew used to say that, oh, they'll just give you. So I was now.
You didn't even know what an overdraft was.
No, I didn't need to use an overdraft. And, for most African countries, it is a cash economy, right? I think South Africa is the only one with a really sophisticated financial services system where people use credit cards, where people use debt quite a lot.
And you see what that has done to us in terms of debt. We're on par with the US and the UK in terms of debt. We're like a debt economy. So I don't know how I feel about sophisticated financial systems because, most Asian countries are the same in terms of like same as other African countries. It's cash economies.
Yeah.
So people don't carry the insane amounts of debt that South Africans carry,
Yeah. So
There's a
now I
lot
came
to get
into
about
this.
these sophisticated economies.
It's true.
They have their own downsides.
Indeed, yeah. But the lack of that sophistication for me coming from, Zimbabwe, which was a very much a cash economy. And yes, there was debt, like mortgages and loans, etc. Those are the ones I knew. I didn't know about credit cards. And you could get stuff on hire purchase as well.
Yeah.
But most of the time it was cash. And I think even now people prefer to use cash because anyway, with what we've experienced with the currency devaluing, you want to kind of spend the money there and then. And then I moved to the UK and there's all this thing about credit cards and whatnot. So I thought it's, and when they sell it to you, right, it's like, oh, you take this amount, the interest rate is this amount. And so I'm just like, yeah, I can manage it. But what was happening is I get this loan here and then I get this one here and looking at them individually, but not like the whole thing.
Yes, I think that's also how I got caught up. I got credit cards like right after graduation, like Standard Bank. Ooh, should I say the bank? Anyway, I said it, but like the bank, not their fault, guys. Like I have issues with banks, but like I guess maybe partly their fault too. But they asked me, I'm like 22, what do you want to do? Do you want a credit card? And in my head, I was like, the only person that I knew that had one credit card was my dad. My mom had never had credit cards, and my dad doesn't also believe in debt. So my parents had never believed in debt, like whatever they get on credit, they pay off. But my mom's always bought everything cash. Her house has been cash, everything's been cash, car cash. To this day, my mother bought a new car like a few years ago. She got it cash, like everything is done cash, so I was then told like, hey, what do you want? Do you want a credit card? And I remember saying to the bank teller, why would I want a credit card? She's like, well, I see you're getting a salary. You don't have an overdraft. You don't have a credit card. So started my drama, guys. I had lost my bank card. I thought I was going to replace it. Then this woman tells me I can get a credit card for about 15,000 Rand, which is about $1,000 US. So I'm like, why would I do with that? I was literally confused. I remember asking this question, why would I get a credit card? And then she said the magic words. She said, maybe you can get a car, maybe you want to get you want to get clothes. I was like, no, I won't get those things on credit because I hadn't seen anyone get those things on credit, right? So then she was like, oh, if you want to go traveling. My ears perked up. I said, what? She said, oh yeah, you can use your credit card to go traveling and to pay for plane tickets. I was like, sign me up, ma'am. I couldn't get this credit card fast enough. I walked out of there with a new bank card and a credit card, and I knew I was going to go traveling. And so I started traveling with credit cards. And even in the UK, I got credit cards. In the US, I got credit cards. I got credit cards everywhere because now it was my way of traveling,
Yeah, exactly. So the thing with debt is that there is good and bad debt. And most of the time it's about understanding how to manage it. And I didn't know. And also I had this habit of giving, like I am a giver, which is why I've gone into coaching and all that stuff, and why I'm happy to go onto people's podcasts and talk at events because I want people to learn, but I didn't realize that was also feeding into how I was managing my money. It got to a point where I was now just really sick and tired of feeling like every time I walked out of the house, there was a sign on my head and people could see that I had debt. Like it was,
It does feel like that though. Like I agree with that.
And I'm thinking if my employer finds out, if all these people find out, it's like you're carrying this secret, because also there was no one to talk to. At least that's how I felt, right? I felt there was no one to talk to, nowhere to turn. Like even at the banks where I was owing money, it just felt like if I go to them, it's going to be like, they'll look at me like, it was more about the shame, right? Why have you got yourself into this debt, I'd have to reveal everything. So one day I just thought, I've had enough. I need to do something about this. So I called a debt consolidation company and spoke to a guy, for maybe an hour or so. And he went through the questionnaires that they do. What's your income? What are your outgoings? And basically came up with a rough plan, but he was going to send paperwork through for me to really put things down so that I can have a clear plan. But basically the plan was I would pay like £100 a month, and it would be split between all the different places. And within maybe 6.5 years, I'd have cleared my debt. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Because, I didn't have
£100? You didn't owe a lot of money.
It seemed like a lot. And remember, but what the plan was going to be was that the interest was going to be stopped as well. And obviously when you pay off one, then it goes on to the next one.
Yes, the snowball effect.
It's a snowball. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
And then, so that was fine. I was like, okay, fine, send the paperwork through. That's a good enough plan. But as soon as I cut the phone, I remember saying to myself, I cannot go through this for another 6.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I just thought by the time it's 6.5 years, there's things I want to do. I have to wait for 6.5 years. My credit score, these things stay on your credit file for 6 years. So that means after I go 6.5 years, and then I have to wait another 6 years. That's 12.5 years. And I was like, I can't. So I literally got my laptop, created a spreadsheet, and for the first time listed everything I owed and to who, and then looked at my income, what I was paying for the very first time since I'd moved to the UK, what was coming in and out, and then kind of did my own plan for paying it off. And I basically became debt-free in 1.5 years. And
Tsitsi, that's amazing. From 6.5 years to 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And of course, the debt consolidation company was also looking at what was possible for you in terms of your salary and everything. Do you mind sharing with someone who's on the other end and just like, oh my gosh, I'm drowning in debt? How did you do it? What are some things that you did on your own? So you did the spreadsheet, and then
so I literally, the things I did, which is like, that's how I've now, when I look back at it, that's the basis of my blueprint that I take my clients through. I call it choices, because each letter in the word choices stands for a step. And the first one is C, which is clarity. And I literally, and clarity came from me doing that spreadsheet, being really clear on where I was, like, listen, this is what you're owing, right? And seeing it, because the thing is, I was that person who wasn't even opening the letters when they were coming in, right?
Oh, my hand is raised. My hand is raised.
Looking at it, I wasn't acknowledging it. I was just like, oh, you then know which company it is, right? From even if they're all white envelopes, that it was that company. I keep them, put them to the side, because I like order. So I want to file. Things were just piling up, and then I ended up sometimes throwing things away. So literally, I started opening those envelopes and putting them in piles, like, okay, this is from that company, and putting the most recent one at the top, because that would have the most recent balance, right? And then also understanding what was coming in and what was I paying for. Another thing was really looking at, where is my money going? The money that's not paying the bills, right? Because a lot of people who've grown up in Africa and moved to the diaspora and have got links back home, we're sending money home. We're sending money home, we're supporting people back home. And I'm asking myself, why am I supporting this person? What is the reason, and how is that going to benefit me? Because, and then it was a question of, where do I want to be, right? And I definitely didn't want to be living in the flat that I was living in. It was a very nice flat, but I wanted more. I wanted property. The reason why I moved was so I could have my own property eventually, have a nice car, have nice things, because those are the things that I wanted. And I was like, that's what I want. So what am I?
Who does not want nice things, man?
Exactly. What am I going to do to get from where I am now to where I want to be. And then I had to look at myself and think, okay, the way I'm spending my money, why am I doing it this way? Why is, I mean, now I can say that it was partly this thing about keeping relationships back home, also helping people. You know, my parents always used to say, you know, you need to set a good example. Also that awareness of back home things weren't right. So you feel like you're obliged to support. There was that. And in some instances, there was an element of power. And I think a lot of people don't acknowledge that when people need you, you have a certain level of power, and it becomes intoxicating, doesn't it? And addictive.
There is that, right? And this is what I always say. So when I do my work, I always look at the breadwinners and the people that are recipients and reliant on the breadwinners, right? And I'm like, I don't exclude the breadwinners as part of the problem, right? Because I'm like, that is it. It's that like most breadwinners are there because, well, helping other people means that like you get, it's like you are now included in other people's worlds.
Yeah.
You now enmeshed, like decisions can't be made without you. Like there's a funeral at home, you must be consulted. So you get to be the person, you know, you get your status. And I understand that, right? Because it's like people get something from that.
Yeah, and you do. And I think if you're on your own and you get that opportunity to have that role, you know, some people may want to hold on to it. You know, I had to acknowledge the fact that I've got a daughter, and that was a really big thing for me. Like, what is she learning from this when she's seeing this? And if I continue like this, what is she not going to inherit as in actually inherit, but like, what sort of person is she going to be when it comes to money? And, you know, it's creating this cycle. So I had to break that. So I had to look at my habits and my mindset. And that's the H, the second letter in choices, you know, understand your habits and mindset, and then overcome, like really start working on some of those limiting beliefs that, you know, those things that I used to hear or see, and which made me feel like, actually, I don't deserve, because the reason why I was also giving money away was I felt I didn't deserve the money, right? I didn't deserve nice things. I didn't deserve good things to happen to me. And if I had a lot of money, it would mean I could have the nice things and it was a good thing, but it would be taken away. And a lot of that came from the fact that I lost my parents, right? That they were taking away from me.
Losing your parents, and also for your inner child probably saw it as abandonment, right?
Exactly.
Even though like it was out of your parents' control, but like children process things differently. So your inner child and your inner teen probably felt that. So the fear of being abandoned by money as well. So if money had to run out, you know?
So, and also living in Zimbabwe, where, you know, I went through that whole phase where, you know, my mid to late teens and my adulthood was all about chaotic money, and money coming and money going, money disappearing because they've changed the rules or whatever, money not being worth anything. So it was easy to just be like, oh, I've got money, you know, I think I was probably uncomfortable having a lot of money, because it's like, what do I do with it? And that was the other thing. I didn't know what to do with the money. Yeah. Which is a big thing. So because I wasn't clear on where I wanted to go. So I had to work on that myself, and then really become clear on what it is I wanted to do, you know, identify my real intentions and my values and why I wanted to go to work and why I wanted to have money. So, you know, I mentioned the properties, I mentioned just being comfortable, and comfortable to me means so many things. It means going to nice restaurants. It means going on holidays. It means, you know, being able to get my hair done and my nails done and all those things, and having the type of gin and tonic that I like, you know.
I love that. Having the type of gin and tonic that I like. Yeah, exactly. No, like I shared stories about like when I was highly broke, I would go to restaurants and I would always like look for the cheapest item on the menu, not because this is what I wanted, but like this is how I had trained myself. So I was heavily in debt, but no matter how cheap I went, I never seemed to get out of debt, you know? And it's ironic because now I don't get into debt, and yet like I don't even look at what's the cheapest thing on the menu. I'm just like, this is what I want and that's what I'm having, you know.
Yeah.
But when I was struggling the most financially, I was cutting back the most financially. And I was getting deeper into debt, because this comes back to what you talk about. It's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
There's so much there. You can't get cheap enough to be wealthy. You don't,
You can't.
you know, that's just the thing. Because I have so many people that come to me and say to me, I've cut back as much as I can. And sometimes they don't hear me when I say it's not about how much you cut back. Because like some of them will say, I'm even living just, I don't even buy anything like junk food. I just buy the food that I need. And yet things are getting worse, because that is not the solution.
It's not. Yeah. It definitely isn't. You know, it's all about the mindset. And it's really interesting when I decided to put myself out there as a financial coach. And, you know, we do these discovery calls to find out, you know, if we can work with an individual and what it is that they really need help with. And a lot of the time, the biggest barrier would be people just want like the solution, like, just tell me what it is I need to do. How can I change my budget? And, you know, I would go for hours and hours saying, you know, it's not about the budget, it's you. It's actually you, and you need to understand yourself. So, you know, my process is about understanding yourself first, and then let's put the plan into place. Which then is like the, you know, step number 5 in my blueprint about evaluating whether your money is working as hard as you do. And that's when we do I call it a spending plan. What are we spending our money on? And is it in line with our intentions and our values? So if you're someone who wants to go out and have a meal or go on holidays, then is your money actually working towards that? When you're spending your money, are you spending it in alignment with that? Or are you doing the complete opposite?
Yeah,
and
we talk a lot about that, spending in
accordance.
accordance.
It doesn't work. Yeah, if you're saying I like going on holidays and whatever, but you're spending it on I don't know, maybe on clothes and expensive handbags, of course, your money is never going to work for you, because you're not actually enjoying it. You want the holiday. So, you know, my very first client said to me, I want to go on holidays. I love traveling and I want to travel in first class. And I was like, right. So how can you make that happen? And with the spreadsheet template that I made for myself when I went into debt, that's the one when I was trying to get myself out of debt, that's what I give to my clients. She literally sat down and was like, literally, I don't need to spend money on that because I don't even like that. And actually it makes me gain weight and whatnot. And I'm like, yeah, if you're ill, you can't even get on the plane to go wherever you want to go. So, you know, when you start using your money to do things that really feed you, that are in alignment with what you want, it just expands, right? It just expands. You've got so much more. And my salary has increased over time because, you know, as I've been in the industry, I've got my qualifications, you know, I've changed roles a bit, but my budget is still, as you know, it's based on my basic and nothing extra, right? If I get bonuses or whatever, that goes into savings. I don't even use it. Whereas before, when I used to get a bonus, I would spend that money so quickly, right? And not even I have nothing to show for it. Now the extra money, I don't even need to spend it because everything is allocated and it's in alignment with what I want for myself. Yeah, it's to get to that point is really, really phenomenal, but you need that mental resilience. You need to understand yourself. You need to understand the triggers that will make the plan work. Because I have been, when I started this whole paying myself first and saving, I would get to the point where I'd have like, let's say £1,000 in the bank account. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this is too much money. And I'm like, okay, what has triggered? Why am I feeling this way? Like, why am I feeling like I need to spend it? And understanding those things is how you can start building that wealth.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. So powerful. I genuinely love what you've just said. So what you just said when I was interrupting, um, not one of my many bad habits, guys. You guys know from the podcast, I get overly excited. But one of the things that you said is how money grows when you spend it on the things that matter to you. So we talk a lot in the bank account challenge, which is a course that I have around and that I run, which is all about spending money in accordance with your values, right?
Yeah.
So aligning your spending, because when most people will be like, I am in alignment, and in the new age space, we talk a lot, in the personal development space, people talk about alignment.
Yes.
But alignment is also very much a behavioral thing,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people talk about being in alignment with their like internally with chakras, etc. But I'm always like, I'm happy about that. But like your behavior also has to be in alignment. Your behavior is what tells us that you are in alignment, right? How you operate. And when it comes to money, that is what financial behavior is: alignment, right? You are in alignment with the vision. So if you say to me, you want to start a business, but then all your money goes to everything but a business, or like all your money goes to everything but anything, even things around learning business, money, etc., then you are out of alignment, right? Like I can tell you through how you spend money if you are in alignment or not. So I love what you said. Exactly that. It's about the flight tickets, like the client that wanted to fly first class. It's not about, as most people have been taught, that you need to cut back on everything and just live on bread and water in order to have money. No, it's about being in alignment with your spending and how you behave with money, how you spend money, how you make money, right? So super, super powerful, Tsitsi. Thank you for that. And how do you see that your definition, did you ever have a definition of money trauma? And how is that changing? Because I imagine that maybe you also thought, oh, it's about the things that your parents are saying around money. But now I see that it's grown to encompass even what was happening in the country that you're growing up in, which is so, so important, because the environment in which we grow up in has an impact on our psyche and our mindset. This is the thing that I always say to people, because people will say to me, when I was living in this particular place and it was beautiful and gorgeous, my money just flowed. But then to save money, I moved to a different neighborhood, and now the things that I see don't even make me come alive, but I'm paying less in rent, paying less in everything, but my money is worse than ever before. Environment has an impact on us as well.
It does.
Anyway, I digress. How has your definition of money trauma changed?
Yeah, well, I didn't have a definition of money trauma. When I got into this whole money game, it wasn't really about money. So my first introduction to managing money and looking after money and growing money was when I got my job in financial services. And that was in 2007. And when I walked into that company, I still work there. When I walked into the company, I looked around, I was like, this is not for me. It was just I just saw a sea of white males in pinstripes, and I was like, no, it's not for me. And I'll be out of here in 3 years, and I'll go and do like marketing or something else. Not also realizing that that's part of the traumatic story that I carry.
But, nice things are for other people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I see people say that a lot, do that a lot. We're like, you tell them about something and they go, I'll see that in another 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
No, guys, nice things are your portion in life.
Exactly.
Like, it's okay to ask yourself, how can I make this happen in 6 months, in a year? But I see that a lot. And sometimes I never know if I should engage people and say, hey, when you say that and when you do that, that's part of the money story. Because
Yeah.
Why not now? Why can't you have these things right now?
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy, you know. And you know, just going back to the trauma, I think I've discovered this thing about money trauma when I was asking a lot of questions about my own behavior. And then looking back, I mean, I tell a story of when I was doing filing at work and I came across a trust deed, which was written in the 1800s. And I couldn't believe it, that this individual had set aside some money for his children and their children, so his children and his grandchildren and the descendants after that.
In the 1800s.
And this was now 2007. It was actually 2008. I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, how is this possible? Remember, my parents died in the 90s and I'm just like, why didn't they do this? Or why didn't they talk about it? So I'm asking all this, like, why didn't they talk about this sort of things? Why are the older people around me not in the community, not talking about this? Why don't we learn about this thing? And how is this possible? Because that money was alive, like we were managing that money. And I was like, this money would have been
200 years later.
Properties would have been used to buy cars, would have sent people to school, and it's still living today, covering medical bills. And it just blew my mind. And on asking that question, like literally every day, I was like, how is this possible? And then just looking back at, like, you know, if we go back to the beginning of this conversation, when you were talking about where our history, where our story begins, right? It begins as at a place where we are nothing and have nothing. We are worthless, right? And if you go before that story, that's where the real story is, and we don't have the story. So over time, I've got to understand that, you know, this money trauma that we have isn't even about us now or our parents. It goes millennia back. It goes so far
It's
back.
ancestral, right?
So ancestral. And that's one thing that I want to spend my time like learning and understanding, because it really is. I believe that a lot of the behaviors that Africans have, especially when it's like secrecy around money and the things we have, part of it comes from just protecting the clan and protecting what you have from it being taken away. But we've evolved.
And fear of witchcraft. Like this is something like, I mean, I go as deep as teaching that because it is part of our culture, and this fear rules us. Many of us were not able to move forward. So we can't say, oh, that's modern day, I don't care about it. Your ancestors cared about it and they imparted it to you. That's what matters. When you're out here, you're like, I don't believe in that. It's all good. I don't either really subscribe to a lot of those doctrines, but those things we need to unpack and look at so that we can heal, because they were passed on to us. Like, you'll be secret for no reason. You don't even know. Why don't you want to tell someone something small, man? Like, I got a promotion. You're like, no, people shouldn't know, but we don't know why we're behaving like this.
Exactly. And I'm like that, you know, to be honest, when it comes to, especially when it comes to work, not my business, but when I'm working with different groups of people, there's certain groups where I just keep my things to myself. And some people will be like, oh, she just keeps her things to herself. And part of it was when I was a secretary, I had quite senior roles in the companies that I worked with. So it was seen as a good thing, you know, to, you know, confidentiality, because I had a lot of information. So I thought, oh yeah, I can keep confidential information. I'm also very good at keeping secrets because people come and tell me things. But when I am in the workplace, I mean, I can work with you and you'll never know anything about me, because but that comes from the ancestral stuff, right? Where we keep things to ourselves because of fear of people either destroying us or trying to make us fail, etc. And then that comes into our money. So it took me a very long time to even speak to someone about the money. You know, talking about it was one thing, and then overlay that with the fact that you don't even know where to go. Just creates a cocktail of disaster. You know, but one thing I will say about trauma is, as you know, I've got my own podcast, and I've actually recently interviewed a lady who talks about trauma, and she said something that was so mind-blowing to me, that, you know, you have to be willing to go through the breakdown to get to the breakthrough.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's like, you know, and for me, that's just because a lot of people fear dealing with their trauma. And it's that fear that sometimes stops people from actually being able to deal with their money issues, because it's so tied to a traumatic experience, and they won't even know what the experience is until they start talking to someone like you about, you know, the trauma, the ancestral trauma, etc.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that fully. Oh, wow. So thank you for that, Tsitsi. Can you then also tell us what are some 3 things that you've learned from healing your money story? So what are some lessons or insights that you've learned? Just share 3 of those with us.
Yeah, okay, I'll do my best. I think the first one is you can definitely rewrite your money story. And your story is never over, you know. So, you know, become the author of your financial story. Don't let other people write it for you, is really important. And by that I mean, you know, you have the power to influence everything you do with your money, from whatever point you're in, whether you feel like you're at the verge of bankruptcy, or even if you've gone bankrupt, you can still become a millionaire.
Yes.
It's really up to you, and you just have to pick up, because there's so many blank pages. So that's the first one, you know, pick up that pen, write your future story, and just go with it, because it's your story, and don't give the power to somebody else. So that's the first one. The second one I would say is it's our responsibility to break the cycle. We cannot let the next generation start, you know, at minus again. So it is our responsibility to learn and to teach. If I hadn't gone through the learning process that I had gone through, I wouldn't be able to pass on the knowledge to my daughter that I have now. And when I see her helping her friends, you know, it's just means that it's really trickling down. So
so your daughter's helping her friends with their money stories.
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, she's got her own money stories. Right now, it might be a bit of a nightmare, but you know, she's going to rewrite it. But yeah, she's been able to actually identify when she's been able to pick up people's behavior, you know, amongst her friends, and think, and because she went through that, right? And so she's now saying to them, you know, what's the problem? Because I approached her when she was behaving a bit weird, to be like,
that is so beautiful.
So being able to do that actually helps not just yourself, but other people. So I would say that second one is really about, it's not about you, it's about many more people. And so that's our responsibility. And the third one, I would say about, you know, what I've learned about dealing with financial trauma is there is wealth in us, whatever our background is, and we have the ability, we have the knowledge, we can actually overcome anything. And some of that trauma, in that trauma, there are lessons. And I've learned a lot of lessons about understanding the trauma that I went through, lessons about myself, lessons about the world, and lessons about how I can make things better. Yeah.
I love this. This is incredible. So Tsitsi, do you have one exercise that you can give to people, like someone who is trying to start off on their money journey and doesn't know where to start in terms of a wealth creation? Do you have like a daily, weekly, or monthly exercise that people can engage in that can maybe start to shift them?
Yeah, I would say, I wouldn't call it an exercise, but it's a question. that when I'm feeling a bit stuck, because maybe, I don't know about you, Vangile, but even though we are out here helping people with their money, we do sometimes fall over ourselves and get ourselves into a few sticky situations where it's like, oh, why is this happening? Why is there no more money in the bank account?
Mine is like, I'm an open book. People are constantly hearing about my tricky situations. And
yeah, so what I do is always, when I'm at that point where my brain is like, do you really need this? Is this a bit of an impulsive buy, or is this decision good? Is always to ask myself, is this in alignment with my values and my wealth intentions? But to do that, you have to get clarity. So understand where you are now and where you want to be. And once you've done that, right? So maybe that's the exercise. Get clear on where you are now in your money, in your life, in every area of your life. And then ask yourself, where do you want to be in your money, in every area of your life? And then when you are making those daily purchases, those financial decisions, ask yourself, is this taking me closer to where I want to be? Yeah.
I love this. Like, I really, really love this. So guys, beautiful exercise. Whenever you're making a purchase, you can just stop and ask yourself, is this taking me closer to what I want, to where I want to be, where I want to go? Perfect. I love that, Tsitsi. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has been phenomenal. So let me just say, I am still stuck on the trust from the 1800s. I suspect that as we get to the close of the interview, we are all still stuck on that. And just, wow, just to imagine that right now, I can impact my generation, like my descendants 200 years from now through the choices that I make, which can really change the game for my great, great, great grandchildren, right? And they can thank me for that. Or maybe not. They probably will be like, Grandma gave us all this money, now we've got money issues. That happens too, that's okay. But at least they'll have money issues in beautiful homes and beautiful spaces, and their descendants will get to go to school. That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. And I know that there's people that are out here wanting to work with you. So before I even ask for your contact details, you're based in the UK. Can you work with anyone that wants to set up an investment portfolio in the UK?
Yes, so I can, through the company that I work for, we can do that. You just have to be able to pass the money laundering requirements. So we'd have to prove that you are a real person. And then obviously there's levels of, so I work directly with the client. So I'm at the higher end of the service, but we do have a do-it-yourself online service as well. And you can, build as you're going, as as your wealth grows. I'd always say to people who are investing from overseas is just be mindful of the currency, exchange rates and things like that. But yeah, these days it's so easy to start investing. It's so easy. It's so easy to start investing. And some of the clients I have who've got massive portfolios just started with what they had, where they were, and then built it to a reasonable size so that they could move it to, maybe a pot in the UK and in Switzerland and wherever, or even in South Africa.
So what is the bare minimum that people can start with to start working with you in terms of investments? And what are some things, just give us, on this podcast, we've had people come and share, at least Shanine, come and share like various options of investing. Like, can you share what kind of assets people can invest in as a practice too?
So the way we invest, so the company I work for is called Charles Stanley Wealth Managers, and we basically invest in equities and funds. So and with equities, that's shares in companies, and we will buy anything that's easily purchased on the stock exchange. So mainly UK, we do overseas companies as well. It really depends on the client, what their requirements are. So we have to make sure that whatever investment we're putting into a portfolio is suitable for them, their risk level and the objective that they want. So some clients want to build a portfolio that will grow for the next generation. Others want to get some sort of income from the money that they've put into the investment. So it's about aligning what the client wants, understanding what the client wants first, and then building the investments. But I mean, we can invest in just about everything. What we don't invest in is like physical property, because that's not what we do. We're basically a stockbroking firm. But our wealth management arm comes in because we do also financial planning for clients.
Wow.
And my role, I guess my role in the equation is I'm the person who buys and sells the stocks and shares for individuals.
Wow, this is incredible. So just to make this clear, we always want to make sure that people know that this is open to them, because it's that this is for other people, not for me, because I can't afford it. Like she's talking stocks, she's talking the UK, she's talking pounds, she's talking currencies, huge, she's talking white men in pinstripe suits. So what is how early can someone start investing? Like, what is, like, if I have 200 pounds, can I come to you and say, listen, Tsitsi, I've got 200 pounds. What can we do with it? Can you work with me at that level, or do I have to be at a higher level?
So you'd definitely have to be at a higher level, because it's a bespoke personal service, but you can start with the online service where there's a lot of guidance. And we have an online service, but there are a lot out there where you can start building your wealth. And that's how I started. I started with the small amounts that I have and just being consistent, putting that money in, letting it grow. And now I manage my own pension. I manage pensions for people. I manage all sorts, large accounts in the millions of pounds for individuals. And those individuals who've got the 1 million, 2 million, 3 million pound portfolios, when I've sat down with them and asked them how they built it, it's literally with that first 200 pounds.
Whoa. So they, from 200 pounds, they were able
from the 200 pounds, they were just consistent about adding money, whatever they could, even if it's just like, say, 50 pounds a month, and it would grow by investing it. So what you need to do is, firstly, take action and invest, but give that money time to grow. And time is the most important thing. The biggest barrier I had when it came to investing to begin with, when I moved to the UK, was I was so used to the way money would grow in Zimbabwe. Like you could do it today, like now, and in half an hour, you've doubled your money.
Because I mean, there's a lot of that in developing countries, right? I think I want to backtrack and say not in developing countries, because I live in Asia and often opportunities like that don't come. But like I find that in African countries, we are a little spoiled in terms of returns on investments. We have many opportunities to get like 50% return on investment, 60%, to double money at an incredible rate. Like we have, and that means that like we have so much class mobility on the continent, right? Because you don't have to stay in the same class if you can find a way to make money multiply for you. But I know that in developed countries, you do have an opportunity to keep growing your income, right?
Yes, it's a very patient game in this part of the world.
Yeah, like it's the returns are like your 3-5%. But I think you and I had a conversation in this with this, right? That people listening to this podcast shouldn't be deterred by this, right? Because you want to have, especially most of us that are living in African countries and investing in them, or some of us that are traveling and investing in various countries, we also want to diversify our portfolios.
Exactly.
So can you just talk to us a little bit about why that is important? And then also let's talk about what we spoke about, which is the power of currency, right? Is that the power of, if I'm investing in pounds now, like I'm thinking, imagine if I had started investing in pounds when I was 18, maybe 100 pounds with my 700 Rand when it was like 7 Rand to the pound or something like that. And then it was like 10 to the pound. And now the pound is like 1 pound equals 20 Rand, right? That investment would be insane right now.
Yeah, when you convert it back to your local currency. Yeah, so it's definitely an individual thing, right? And it's about that thing about where is it you want to go and what your vision for the future is. But definitely starting small and being consistent is really important. And understanding that you've got the opportunity. I think people who've got the opportunity to operate in two different sort of systems can actually, maximize their wealth creation potential, because you've got the sort of African system where you can really make super profits within half a day or an hour. But then you've also got the patient wealth creation system that's in the developed world, where it might take you 5 to 10 years to make that return that you've made in an hour. The good thing about the patient wealth strategy is your money tends to be a bit more secure, it's more stable, and you can literally invest the money and kind of sit back. The sort of African model is a lot of it you have to be there and you have to be on the ball all the time, and most of it is transactional, whether it's goods or whatever, or some sort of deal that you're doing. So you physically have to be a part of this. With the work I do with my clients, through the company I work for, it's really about them giving you money, you're investing, and we're monitoring the investments for them. And the money is just growing over time. So it's about having a strategy. You definitely want your fast moving money, right? But you also want your backup plan, like an insurance policy. And I think that's what a lot of people who are in Africa do when they are investing in the developed world. That investment is more like an insurance policy, and it's there for later on when they retire, or to pass on to the next generation, etc., or to support their activities back home. And the money that they have back home is what they're using for day to day and to make the quick money, which could then potentially feed the money in, say, in the UK, for instance, or in the US, wherever it is. And I think that is how Africa can actually boost its wealth creation potential when it comes to investments, at least. Because as we've said, there is a lot of wealth in the land anyway. So yes, we should be making those super profits. It's now just making sure that we can benefit when those profits are being made.
Whew. Wow. Love it. And also a lot of, not to keep bringing up the colonial factor, but guys, a lot of these companies that are being invested in are companies that are doing work and making their millions also from the African continent. Yeah. So let us be co-owners in that, right? Let us own the shares. Let us do something. Let us not just be the consumers, right? Yeah, this is how we're going to make the wealth.
To remember. Yeah, I was just going to say that's the thing that people need to remember about investing. When you do invest, you actually own a portion of that company. You own a portion. It might be a small portion, but there are people who have got strategies where they want to become major shareholders so that they can impact change. And one of the things that I like about South Africa, especially when it comes to the women, is the way women come together, put money together, the Stockvels and all of that. And can you imagine if we could do that and buy shares in companies?
We are doing that.
You see?
We are doing that. We shall have a conversation about that offline.
Exactly.
Oh, but guys, if you're listening to this, it's already come out. It's in January.
Oh, wow.
You guys probably already hear this. We'll probably have made it public. The Wealthy Ones Stokvel. Check us out on Stokvela. We are on a mission to have 250 million rand in property assets in a portfolio within the next 5 years. 17 million US dollars in assets, and it's open to people around the world. So if you're international, you can't register with the Stokvela app, but go to wealthy-money.com/Stokvel, where you will find a video. You'll be told as to how you can join as an international person. We launched August 22nd, 2021. Wow. Yep. So we are on this mission and it is happening. So of course, hit me up. This is from one of my other podcasts, the Property Magicians podcast. Me and my co-host, Dr. Miranda Muloto, got together and we are doing this. So yes, guys, you can do it because the power is in the collective. Exactly. As an individual, it will probably take me years to, like maybe my lifetime, to build up that portfolio, right? Or maybe not, who knows? Maybe it happens faster, maybe it doesn't. But my whole point is to build up a property portfolio like that could take me a while and it would require a lot of energy and efforts from me. But as a collective, it only requires me, it requires all of us, and we can do it in 5 years and all co-own, like Tsitsi is talking about, co-own percentages and like shares in various developments and projects, property projects on the African continent. So totally agree with that.
That's amazing.
You should talk offline. I can't believe I didn't tell you.
That's amazing. Oh gosh, we definitely need to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I was busy putting everything together. I just haven't had time to share with people, and also just so nervous to actively own and hold this goal. So everything in my nervous system has been like, oh, this is impossible. It's never going to work out. Let's freak out. You know? So like, I've been like,
I can imagine. You
know? So it's been very, very interesting, the process. But we've already lined up one deal. We're in it. Probably by the time people listen to this and watch this recording, we will have done several deals and members will have started making returns. So we're getting into deals where we get fractional ownership, where we're not just investing, but where we get to invest, get a share of the deal itself, and also make rental or get a share of rental income.
Yeah.
You know?
That's perfect.
So powerful.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. Congratulations. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been incredible starting this. So Tsitsi, how do people get hold of you?
The easiest way would be via my personal website for my coaching business. And my business is called The Wealth Conversation. So you can go online and look for thewealthconversation.com. You can also get in touch with me via the Wealth Conversation page on Instagram or Facebook. And then also you can look for me on LinkedIn. That's Tsitsi Mutiti on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to receive DMs from people. Yeah, and I'll give Vangile my email address if anyone wants to contact me via email.
Fantastic. And guys, that email address will be in the mailing list. Check it out. You heard Tsitsi. If you've got 200 pounds, you can do this on the regular. Guys, let's do this. We're not limited to just South Africa in terms of investments. You know, we are able to invest globally as people, and especially right now, let's utilize it, right? Let's set up investment portfolios in the UK. Let's set up investment portfolios in South Africa. Let's set up investment portfolios in the US as well. Let's be truly global in how we're making our money, and let's use currencies to our own benefit. So thank you so much, Tsitsi.
Thank you for having me, Vangile. It's fantastic. I can't wait to hear more about the stokvel that you've created and your plans for it. I'm so super excited.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to share it with you.
Yeah.
Like, woo, this is going to be awesome.
Amazing.
So thank you so much. And guys, if you've enjoyed this, you want to be part of the stokvel, I'm not even sharing about the money matter course today. Contact Tsitsi, but check out the Wealthy Ones property stokvel. There's a whole story. There's a video on there when you arrive, our launch video. It's all recorded. It will share with you what is the stokvel, how do you get involved, how do you join. If you're in Southern Africa, not just South Africa, but Southern Africa, you can get onto Stokvel and you go to wealthy-money.com/stokvel. And stokvel is STOKV, as in V for Vangile, EL, so stokvel, wealthy-money.com/stokvel. Thank you so much for coming through today. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're loving what you hear, please share these podcasts with your family and your friends. You never know whose life it's going to change. We change our family stories by sharing information with them, right? Not forcing them to do what we're doing, but allowing them to hear how other people are doing things so that they know that we are not strange, we are not weird. So share away the podcast episodes and go to iTunes, find us under Money Magic Podcast. Give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. Tell us your favorite podcast. Who did you love? Leave us comments on Podbean and leave us comments on YouTube as well. Otherwise, have a fantastic day further. Namaste.